Call to order. First thing is the approval of the minutes for January 2027 or January 27th, 2026 Policy and Governance Committee meeting. Any motion from the floor?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody not in favor? Aye. Okay, start with the 700s non-instructional operations and business.
Great, thank you, Director Lingo. Good evening. We do have our monthly reviews are on the 700s. I also know that the Financial Oversight Committee is on here later, policy 223G4. I think that's the first comment I'd make at the top is one of our recommendations would be is when the Financial Oversight Committee gets up and going, that they would also have an opportunity to review this set of policies. And so you will see as you look through, there aren't a tremendous number of substantive significant additions to this set of policies. There are a couple of ones where we're trying to clarify some language and to add a few pieces. But again, we also want to give the financial oversight an opportunity to look at it as well. One of the things that's is some title changes, making sure that we designate the chief financial officer for responsibilities throughout the policy set. Three other policies I would call the board's attention to. First would be 712.1 and 708.1. If you remember last year, 708.1. Those are new policies. If you remember last month in 600, we talked about that some of the policies that were in that group we'd be coming back to in terms of some of the things we're doing with security and video recording. And so you see those policies being recommended by our tech team there, again, captured in 708.1 and 712.1 respectively. The other policy that I'd like to draw the board's attention to, and then I'm going to offer our interim chief financial officer an opportunity to make some comments, and as well as Kurt Pratt, is 705.2R1, our procurement card program manual. That's one piece that Kim has already started looking at and Kurt has worked on, but there and let them make comments on that one if they'd like to.
I went ahead and took a look at the P-card policy that you currently have in place and made some recommendations and changes that I think that you guys need. Some of the recommendations were more procedural, and also the limit of card numbers that are currently out there to restrict them a little bit more. Those are big changes to that policy.
Our largest vendor that we pay out every month is our credit card bill. And so as we tried to look to rein in object code spending overall the year, that was one area we decided we wanted to focus on, just because as Kim kind of stated, it's an unregulated ability to spend money across the district. So knowing our audit, we've been in communication with our auditors as well as what they would guide us to, and more oversight was obviously a consideration for them as well. So that policy to the road is what we've included within the policy there.
There was an addition that I offered, and it's just changing a couple things. I don't have the page in front of me, which starts with the numbered P card will be issued. It's a long policy. The numbered P card will be issued in the name of the school district, controlled by the business office. All purchases with district P card are labeled Administration Office, Iowa City Community School District. Some of those are abbreviated. Will be reviewed monthly, and I crossed off a board member. So it would be reviewed monthly by the Board of Education as an item in the consent agenda. This was what the district had been doing up until August 2023. There was a monthly review by the school board of e-card purchases, and I would like to have that reinstated and put as an item within the policy.
And then they did together fairly lightly.
Maybe some language we can incorporate.
Yeah.
So, as maybe the only board member who's actually used the district card. He's not, oh, that's right. Okay, there you go. The cost estimate, how do we see that working in practice with building level purchases? For example, I use the P card for mock trial. And I can give an estimate, but one of the things we do is we have an end of the year banquet and I can fully use the P card to go to Costco and buy the food on the P card that way. So I can give an estimate, like a budget, like $200. Is that going to be good enough? Do I need to like go in advance to Costco and like get prices? Like how detailed are we going to ask our school active? Like those are the people I'm worried about.
Through the process, you're essentially creating a requisition of purchase order, right? And even if you weren't using a P card, the requirement is that it's over the amount you're wanting to spend, because ultimately what that's gonna do is that's gonna show us that there's budget available to make that purchase. And if you put in a requisition of $200, but you only spend $175, we'll close out the purchase order indicating it was paid for $175, then the 25 will remain on the budget line. So it doesn't have to be down to the penny. I think that's where a lot of people struggle, right? Like if you're gonna go out to dinner or plan meals, like, whatever the limit is per person, you can put that times the number of people you have, then ultimately when we get the bill back, theoretically you covered what the allocation is.
And like the high school financial guide will be approved, like that's where the level of approval will lie for like each of the high schools, or are they going to have to work with somebody? I see on here like a week notice. Is that realistic? I mean, are we gonna have our clubs actually need to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I think a week would be kind of a hopefully the longest time period for approval, just because of the number of levels we get to and things.
Yeah.
Because typically what it'll go is, your building level administrative assistant or whoever it is will put it in that requisition. Then it goes to the building level leader, whether that's the AD, the principal, or could even be a department leader, whatever the case is. And then it would come up to the district level and then go through those ranks. So all that could be done within a day if everybody's,
Sure.
in sequence together, but in all likelihood, it's probably 2 to 3 days.
And then my understanding too is there's P card, but more preferred than P card is purchase order. And that will still be the case, right? I'll say it would be really helpful, again, with not my board, but my mock trial role on, if the district could push out a list of vendors who accept purchase orders. So like we do t-shirts for the mock trial team. And the guy that we use doesn't do purchase orders, but you know what I would love to know is who in town can I do t-shirts with a purchase? And then I don't have to use the P card and we can do the preferred thing. So that might just be something helpful for our clubs and activity groups to have a preferred vendor list or for vendors that accept purchase orders.
Anything else like that?
That's just an overview. Have they taken anything?
I know you had some.
I did, but what I'm hearing is that a lot of this will be reviewed again once financial oversight maybe is
That'd be our recommendation.
more robust. And I do have a lot of notes and questions about different policies, and I am wondering if it would be better to wait until that committee is stood up
I
or.
mean, this would be, if you have any big ones, feel free.
I mean, I think in general, a lot of the things that I was noticing were either points to potentially clarify between who's responsible for what. I know we were making a lot of changes to CFO and from how it was worded before. I think there were a couple of places where I was noting that it's responsibility of the board secretary, which I know is related to what state law is set up as, but I also am wondering if there are some of those where we need to look at, are we being consistent between, we're saying this is the board secretary responsibility and the CFO responsibility to point out different things. So that's one kind of category of the issue I was looking at. And then there are some like under policy 701.5 R1 financial metrics. There were, sort of labels for metrics listed, but there's not really a reference there to what triggers we, what actual numbers we might be looking at within those metrics, which is, I think, related to the larger discussions we're having right now.
Which
And
policy was that, Jennifer?
that was 701.5 R1 financial metrics. And so, there's some things that are, to be set by the board, say in September, but are there other, metrics we should be establishing either, some sort of number for, so that if we're getting close to that number, we as a, an entity are saying, wow, why are we there? What's it be looking at? Because I feel like we talked about labels more than we talked about triggering numbers or conditions on our path to where we are right now. So I'm just interested in having us be a little more specific about how we're going to actually conduct the oversight in the future. And so my question is that something for today? Or is that something for our financial oversight committee discussion of these policies in the future?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, we have established metrics that we approved a couple of years ago. In 2023, I believe, regarding solvency ratio and UAB goal. Am I wrong? No?
I don't think
Through
you're
the
wrong.
financial oversight
I don't know offhand where they live right now, but I guess the point I was thinking about when Director Horn Fraser was mentioning that, I do think there will be a nice segue point to like stating what those goals are, even if we have them documented somewhere, Director Finch, about let's look at those again, and then what's the pathway to get there, and how are we going to set those metrics as kind of not only embedded in policy, but goal statements about, okay, where do we want the UAB to get to? What do we want the solvency ratio to get to, and how are we going to achieve that over a number of years? And so whether it's making them live in this type of a policy or just talking to the other policy that exists with those, I think that'll be an important one for us to set those goal statements and embed them into the policy for sure. So we can make a note of that. Again, I think like you also mentioned in financial oversight committee meeting, we can set those targets, and then I think that informs a lot of then conversations following that too, about if these are our targets, then how are we going to accomplish
Yeah.
those, right?
And what are we going to do to set ourselves up to monitor them regularly?
Yep.
And, is there a way to connect those numbers to the policy here? So when we are regularly reviewing these things, we're reminded of them. I just think anything we can do to sort of automate our oversight in a way, and I don't mean by like make it automatic, but remind us regularly what we should be looking at, because there are so many details. Set ourselves up for success a little bit better.
That definitely should come through in the quarterly plan.
And then another question that I had about another specific policy is 707.4 related to audit. So let me get there. My question, and that adds an actual policy, but my question is about, I know this is a thing that we have been discussing in our regular meetings as well, but lines of communication. I think we're setting that up to be a little bit different, and I think that this policy should ultimately reflect whatever lines of communication we establish, and so I don't have specific language to propose, but I just want to see us acknowledge that we need to clarify that there is some communication line with the political wing. I think that those are the biggest points I had right now, and if we go back through these with the oversight committee, then I'll be glad to nitpicky with the other things that I would.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anything else? The 700 series. Okay, moving on to policy 303.4, administrator salary and other compensation. So there's a few in there. This was one that I first offered, and then I ran it by legal, which there's three on here. So the first one, trying to increase my screen size so I can read everything, was the original one that I offered. Then I took it to legal and I changed a few words in there to go with the current language, which is the meet and confer, but it sounds like the lawyer's language was the correct language to use.
So that's version 3.
That's version 3. So the main thing, so the part of this, in large part, this is to give the board some more control over the process of the other benefits that administrators are given. That's the long and short of it. So the new language would be, the second paragraph would be deleted, and the new language comes from Ehlers and Cooney, and it is, in addition to the salary and benefits agreed upon, the school district may reimburse for administrative work-related expenses as provided by law and applicable board policy. The board will determine through audit and allow process whether such expenses were actual and necessary and incurred in the performance of official duties in order for them to be approved for reimbursement. So,
I was rereading this, Director Lingo, because I thought your first one about the change from the will to may have accomplished what you were seeking there, but shouldn't benefits agreed upon. So I think the catch about, well, I know the catch, the reason we brought back the audit and allow process was because it's really talking about that reimbursement process for expenses that would happen. So if there's a travel experience or something and there needs to be a reimbursement, it wouldn't be our recommendation. You'd want to wait till the meet and confer process to do that because those happen throughout the year. Meet and confer happens usually in the spring. And so I think for reimbursement, really what you want to do, or what our advice to do would be that, you know, those expenses would be reimbursable throughout the year. And that's kind of what that audit and allow language speaks to. I think the point you made first, though, is the one you really want to try to address through the policy about the board's role in setting the overall benefit structure of the admin team. So I wonder if we need to do some more work on the language of this one and propose something back to you there that would accomplish that. Because I really think this paragraph speaks more to reimbursement of expenses that the administrators incur.
So it may have been miscommunicated.
I had the same question when I was reading it. I thought I interpreted it as at first, like expenses that are fairly normal and customary to be reimbursed. And I didn't want us to unnecessarily require something to be elevated to some level of
That's fine.
review that it doesn't need to be unless there is a dispute over it. And then
Put it on the come back to.
Yeah, it might work better in the first paragraph for us to add some additional language there, because I think that's where it more talks about salary and benefit structure. So
Okay.
we'll work on that one.
I actually like this addition to the attorney's suggestion, because it clearly states, it clearly defines what the expenses are that are covered by this vision. And those are expenses that are provided by law and applicable board policy, which I think was not quite clear in the original wording.
My only concern with the may versus shall is what I asked the lawyers. I mean, there are expenses that we don't have to, we have to reimburse employees for. Like there's an Iowa code that says you have to reimburse employees for these certain expenses. So I don't want to make it seem confusing to somebody in a year or two, like, are we following the law? Are we not reimbursing people the way that we are going to reimburse you if we are required by law to reimburse you? Like that's, we're not trying to skirt our legal duty.
Yeah.
In this policy, but maybe if you guys change.
Well, the shall may work on the reimbursement end, but I think
Yeah.
if we get the language that I think you're looking for, Director Lingo, and how the benefits are agreed upon and the board's role in that, you know,
Yeah,
maybe some language there, I think that can accomplish both.
Well, what I'm trying to get to is to have some
Right.
oversight over it.
I think we can come up with something.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Moving on, since we have 3 minutes left, the last one is the structure of the Financial Oversight Committee charter. And is this the original, the way the charter is written now?
Yes, this is the
Okay.
current policy from the 200s.
So is the plan to change the charter or what are we?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I think, yes, we'd like to rewrite the charter for this committee. I think this is probably a policy we want to spend some more time on with you guys and look at some potential model examples of what a charter could look like and the membership of the committee, which we included in the charter. So that one, and I think that one of your requests was pulled over into this meeting because of the intersection with the 7. We would just need some additional time and input from you guys once we provide some examples there, of what that oversight, financial oversight committee could look like from a structure and content standpoint and policy. And we can earmark this when we come back to as well.
I would also like to, I have similar questions about basically, specifically the education committee. It's one I was just looking at. I feel like we can do better for the charters for those kinds of things, those committees generally. This would be, of course, the financial oversight committee would be my top priority, but I do think that if we're looking at those charters, because I think we can make those committees do a lot more good for us than we're going to be doing.
So the next financial oversight committee meeting might be looking at the charter and then digging into the 700 series more in depth. I mean, does that sound fair?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it up at the board table, but I'd also like to take a look at 303.2. At some point, looking at that.
What's the name of that one?
Administrative qualifications, recruitment and appointment. 303.2. 303.2.
And we have a motion from the floor.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.